Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into one of the absolutely coolest phenomena in all of biology. We call it the Goldilocks principle. Just think about it for a second. Every single day, organisms are bombarded by wild, drastic changes in their outside environments. But inside, every living thing is working tirelessly 24/7 to keep its internal environment not too hot, not too cold, but exactly, perfectly, just right. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to cover 1. What is homeostasis? 2. Homeostasis in humans. 3. Homeostasis in animals. 4. Homeostasis in plants. And 5. Why homeostasis matters. Section 1. What is homeostasis? The internal thermostat. Okay, so imagine the crazy external changes we face all the time. We're talking blistering summer heat, freezing winter snow, huge shifts in what we eat and drink. With all that chaos happening on the outside, how does the body not just completely shut down? Well, it all comes down to homeostasis. By definition, homeostasis is the maintenance of a balanced and stable internal environment in an organism. Think of it exactly like the thermostat on your water heater at home. That thermostat is always watching the temperature. When the water gets too cold, boom, it automatically switches the heater on. When it gets too hot, it switches it off. It's constantly adjusting to maintain that perfect baseline. And our bodies are doing the exact same thing with our internal temperature, our water levels, our blood pressure, and our pH. And that brings us to the homeostatic control process. This is basically a continuous, never-ending 4-step cycle. First, receptors in your body detect an imbalance. Let's say your internal temperature spikes. Second, that SOS signal gets sent straight to the control center, which is usually the brain. Third, the brain deploys a corrective mechanism, firing off signals through your nerves or hormones to specific organs. And finally, step 4, those organs get to work bringing your internal environment right back to its normal range. It's literally a perfect feedback loop. Moving right along to section 2, homeostasis in humans, our body's balancing act. What's genuinely fascinating here is that we can see this exact process happening inside our own bodies right this very second, especially when we look at water and temperature regulation. In humans, the brain is the ultimate control center. It's the grand conductor of your internal orchestra. It's constantly taking in signals from receptors all over your body. And once it figures out what's going on, it coordinates a response by talking to 2 major systems: the excretory system, which handles your waste and water, and the endocrine system, which is in charge of your hormones. So let's talk about water regulation. Say you just chugged a massive bottle of water. Your internal water level spikes. Your brain detects this right away and signals your kidneys, using those hormones we just mentioned, to produce more urine, effectively flushing out the excess water. But what about when you're out sweating profusely on a hot day? Your water level drops. The brain detects that drop, tells the kidneys to produce way less urine to conserve what you have left, and it throws in a physical cue for good measure. You feel thirsty. That thirst is literally your brain's way of prompting you to drink and restore the balance. Now let's look at temperature. Picture running a marathon on a scorching summer day versus standing outside in a freezing snowstorm. You are thrust into 2 massive extremes, right? But here's the catch. Human body temperature has to be maintained in a super narrow window, precisely between 36.5 and 37.7 degrees Celsius. To pull this off, your body deploys completely opposite corrective mechanisms depending on where you are. The contrast between these mechanisms is key. In hot surroundings, your blood vessels actually dilate. We call this vasodilation. It brings warm blood closer to the surface of your skin to let heat radiate away. Your sweat glands kick into high gear, cooling you down as the sweat evaporates, and the tiny hairs on your skin lie completely flat. But in the cold, the exact opposite happens. Your blood vessels constrict, vasoconstriction, to keep that warm blood tucked safely away from the cold skin's surface. Those tiny hairs stand straight up to trap a little layer of insulating air around you. And your skeletal muscles start rapidly contracting and relaxing. You start shivering, which actually generates vital heat for your core. Section 3. Homeostasis in animals, nature's thermostats. Animals obviously have to carry out homeostasis to survive too, but they don't always have the same tools we humans do. For example, dogs and cats don't have sweat glands all over their bodies. They only have them on their paws. So how on earth do they cool down? Well, nature has evolved some incredible corrective mechanisms. Cats will actually lick their fur, and as that saliva evaporates, it acts just like sweat, pulling heat away from their bodies. Dogs, as you probably know, hang their tongues out and pant to release heat. Now, cold-blooded animals like lizards, they literally change their metabolic rate based on the environment. Their heart beats much faster in the heat and drastically slows down in the cold. Snails deal with this by producing a special fluid and hunting down humid hiding spots to stop themselves from drying out. And bees, this is wild. Bees have a waxy skin layer, and they will actually snap their breathing pores, called spiracles, completely shut between breaths just to lock their moisture inside. Moving on to Section 4, Homeostasis in Plants, Flora's Balancing Act. So let's pivot to the alien yet totally fascinating world of flora. Plants obviously don't have a brain or a nervous system, but they still absolutely rely on homeostasis to regulate their internal water content. Which brings up a really fun question. We know dogs pant, and we know humans sweat, but do plants have a way to cool themselves down and release water on a scorching hot afternoon? How does a tree sitting in direct blistering sunlight not just burst into flames or completely dry out? Well, they do have a method, and it's a process called transpiration. Transpiration is where water from the leaves is lost in the form of water vapor to the surrounding environment through these tiny microscopic pores called stoma. When this water evaporates from the leaves, it actively cools the plant down on hot days. And even better, this evaporation actually creates a pulling force, kind of like sucking on a straw, that helps the plant absorb new water and minerals from the soil, pulling them all the way up the roots to every single part of the plant. But how do they regulate it without a brain? Surrounding those tiny pores are what we call guard cells, and they act exactly like tiny automatic doors on the leaves. During a normal, pleasant day, the guard cells keep the stomata, which is just the plural for stoma, wide open to allow for optimal transpiration. But if the temperature gets dangerously high and the plant is at risk of losing way too much water, those guard cells will dynamically change their shape, defensively snapping the stomata shut to prevent the plant from drying out. It's a completely automatic, built-in survival mechanism. Finally, Section 5, Why Homeostasis Matters, the Cellular Stakes. We've seen how humans, animals, and plants all manage their internal environments, but why is this constant balancing act so absolutely critical? To put it simply, life cannot exist without it. Homeostasis provides the optimum conditions for our cells to actually carry out their metabolic processes. See, our bodies are absolutely packed with enzymes, these tiny biochemical machines that catalyze the reactions keeping us alive. And those enzymes only function at an optimal rate at that specific 37 degrees Celsius. If our internal temperature drops too low, the reactions get way too sluggish to sustain life. If we get too hot, the enzymes literally denature. They break apart and stop working entirely. By strictly regulating our temperature and water, homeostasis prevents catastrophic health issues and is exactly what allows organisms to adapt and survive in completely new habitats. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. What would happen to ourselves if our internal conditions were completely at the mercy of the outside world? The honest truth? We wouldn't last a single day. Every second of your life is an absolute masterclass in balance. So the next time you find yourself shivering in the winter cold or sweating in the summer sun, take a quick second to appreciate that invisible thermostat working nonstop to keep you perfectly in the Goldilocks zone. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep staying curious.